Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. I am your host for the day. My name is Craig Collins. Lots going on in the world. And, of course, the only thing we ever talk about, if you're in any form of media, is the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the things he said and sometimes kind of sort of didn't say. But that's me just being honest, which you don't get everywhere. But there are some things he definitely did say that he's being criticized for. And some of those rightly so. You just got to be fair. We gotta be honest at times when some things happen and go a certain way. Laura Ingraham interviewed the president last night. A lot of political TV available for you all throughout the day. You had Joe Biden speak, and I don't know what that was. That wasn't a rally. It was kind of supposed to be one, maybe. Actually, you know what? Why don't we start there? Just because I find this kind of funny. Fox and Friends, they laughed a bit, just a tad, at the fact that the Biden rally, that the first one of him coming back and being a part of in-person political speeching, it really wasn't all that different than sitting at home because there was almost no one in attendance. There were just a few different cameramen and things. Like, why go? That's the question people asked. You can do this with like a Zoom background, Biden, if you'd like to. You don't have to go this road. You don't have to travel somewhere, get on a flight, bring a bunch of people with you, and then talk to nobody. But this is what Fox and Friends said to that. And I'm only starting with this, not because I think it's more newsworthy than the Trump stuff. We definitely will get to it. I want to laugh. You got to have a laugh early on in the show.
Talked about people around him, Chad. You go back to those photos. There was no one around him yesterday. Does it count going on the campaign trail if you go to an empty warehouse surrounded by circles?
Very philosophical of you.
No one there.
Very deep.
Read off of a teleprompter for 23 minutes and take no questions. Is that technically, Brian, meet the threshold of a campaign event?
I don't. If a tree falls in an empty factory, does anyone hear it? Especially when you walk off and don't take any questions. We're going to ponder that.
That's a great question. That's a great take. In all honesty, I thought it was very funny when I saw that this morning, earlier today. Yes, that's a good question. He did not have to do it that way, especially if you're not taking questions. Like, I don't know what a public appearance is if you don't have anybody there and you don't take any questions. How is that different than what's been going on so far? But it was one step in the direction, I guess, of being out there in the world. Maybe the change happened when so many people criticized him for being a flip-flopper on saying that he was going to stay at home and then not stay at home. But all right, let's get to all the stuff that was said on Laura Ingraham's program with the President of the United States because, well, some of the things are being criticized. And I think a lot of the time, the president is unfairly criticized because he speaks very plainly. He speaks very person to person. He doesn't speak like a politician at all, which I'm not blowing any minds by saying that on the radio. That's very obvious to almost everyone. And it gets him in trouble often in ways I do not think he intends for his message to be heard. But it's the way it's spoken. So it's difficult sometimes to 100% defend these sort of things because those are the words you said as a collection of words. Did you intend them the way you said them? No. If we're being fair and not trying to score political points on television on a nightly basis, then, we can be a little more honest about the fact that, yes, he made a comparison between law enforcement and between the horrible tragedies that have happened recently and something he should not have compared it to. That's something he did on the show. He was trying to have a human version of a conversation, and he is being criticized heavily for that version of the conversation because it is an inappropriate thing to say if you're not trying to have any sort of grace, any sort of forgiveness to the idea that he's not trying to be polished and a politician the way that we're used to having them. He's just not. And maybe that's truthfully the biggest challenge in all this. And I'll play the audio. I'm delaying it a lot. But maybe that's the biggest challenge in all this is really getting over the hump on understanding why some people support the president and why some people can't, is whether or not you can hear someone speak things and understand the intent of those things more so than the collection of words spoken. And it's a challenge. It's not exactly something we all have to do. But here, this is Trump on law enforcement, the impact of some of the polling that was given. And then we will get to the controversial audio that is being covered quite heavily. And I actually even have Joe Scarborough reacting to it this morning, which is as crazy as you might think he's being But maybe I'll play that. I don't know. But here first is Trump on Law and Order.
Law and Order has increased my poll numbers a lot. We've done a great job in COVID, but we don't get the credit. You know, we work through the governors. The governors have gotten everything they wanted. Every ventilator, we didn't have ventilators. We had empty cupboards when I got there. As I say, the cupboards were bare. I think they're going crazy over the election. I think they're seeing what's happening. I mean, Joe Biden now today goes to Pittsburgh, right? So he goes to Pittsburgh. He wasn't scheduled to leave ever. Then he said he's going to leave 3-4 days ago because his polls are going like this, right? Then
will he debate you? Well, do you think he's going to debate you?
Oh, I don't know about
he'd like
that.
Not to.
I don't know if he is. I feel like there's already Nancy Pelosi's given the green light to skipping those, and Joe Biden might take him up on that. Might take her up on that. I don't know. But here's I just wanted to play the Law and Order because that was part of the conversation about the way in which President Trump has obviously been on the side of protecting the communities that exist in our country and not allowing for things like rioting and looting to exist, not doing whatever he can to prevent those from being problems that occur while other people intend to do much more peaceful things. He has never been against peaceful protesting. He's never been against anything other than the violence that's taking place in so many different communities throughout the country. And that is now something that everyone is adopting. That's now an idea that everyone is finally addressing. President Trump did not ignore the issue the way that people on the left did. And now he then says, again, trying to support cops, the statement that's gone viral and been a bigger story out of the conversation from the last evening.
It's more dangerous to be a police officer today, do you not think, than it has been in
the police
a long time?
Are under siege because of things. They can do 10,000 great acts, which is what they do, and one bad apple or a choker. You know, a choker. They choke. Shoot.
Okay, right there, I know there's people who are already going to be uncomfortable. If you're listening to this audio and you know that there have been stories of individuals who lost their lives because they were choked, I guess, for lack of a better word, by police officers, this is already most politicians wouldn't say things in this manner because of mistakes like this that happen. And there's no way around. Look, if you support the guy, that's fine. If you don't support the guy, that's also fine. It's a free country. We can do whatever we want. When he says these things, he's the kind of person that I don't think connects those dots the way that so many are willing to do on an almost daily basis with him. He did not intend first to be insensitive to any past history, any past stories, any past individuals who were tragically killed. That's not the intention. He's using a word just because he's having a conversation like a regular person, and he probably already regrets it. But he continues and he says something else.
I mean, they shooting the guy in the back many times. I mean, couldn't you have done something different? Couldn't you have wrestled? You know, I mean, in the meantime, he might have been going for a weapon, and there's a whole big thing there. But they choke, just like in a golf tournament, they miss a 3-foot.
You're not comparing it to golf because, of course, that's what the media.
I'm saying people choke.
People panic.
Choke,
yeah.
And people are bad people. You have both. You have some bad people, and they choke.
Okay, so at the end of that conversation, you hear Laura Ingraham desperately try to immediately address that and say that the media will run wild with that statement, that simple statement where you made a comparison that you shouldn't have made, and that will be the entirety of the conversation. There will be no context given. There will be no back and forth. A lot of people are saying that Laura tried to protect the president, that was because she is, a favorable interviewer, that she would go the road of anything and everything she can do to make sure that it's not headline news for the wrong reasons. I don't know that I entirely agree with that. I feel like it's two human beings having a conversation the way that a lot of people talk when they're, and I don't mean those specific words. I just mean if someone says something that you immediately notice, like someone says a phrase or they make a comparison, you're like, well, I wouldn't, that's not appropriate. And then they go, oh, you're right. Let's do it differently. That's the way that we as human beings interact with each other. We just do it. And the president of the United States, something that is very much liked about him by his supporters and very much used against him on an almost daily basis by those who hate him, by those who dislike him, is the way in which he communicates and how it's just utterly different than any other politician, and truthfully, a lot more like the way two people sitting around a kitchen table, maybe talking about the issues of the day, would talk about them. And if one person said something as insensitive as a comparison between the loss of life and a game of golf, you probably would be sitting across the table from them like, no, that's not, you obviously mean something different than what you're saying right now. And the other person would say yes, and you'd accept it. If it was just a person in your life and not a guy that the media utterly hates because of the way he is as a human, we would all just get over that. That would not be headline news. You wouldn't have Joe Scarborough hopping on television and going off on that and so many other things said. And we have more audio from the Laura Ingraham interview because, yeah, there's some other things that were said. But here's Joe real quick, just because, in fairness, I've referenced it a couple times. I might as well let you hear it.
Donald Trump, the president of the United States, compared shooting a man 7 times in the back with missing a 3-foot golf putt. And on the suburbs, low-income housing, crime comes with it. And as Laura was trying to correct him, he said it might not be nice, but crime comes. And then he just blurts out women. Like, we've got to protect the white women. Again, Gene Robinson, this is a racist trope not out of 1955. It's out of, 1855.
This is Joe getting very upset at the comments, man. Look, I want to make sure that my points are as understood as possible today because I'm aware that I'm already jumping into a conversation where I myself might even be thought of as, well, you defended something you shouldn't defend. I think it's utterly inappropriate, like most human beings, to compare one very serious situation to a game of golf. I think that's inappropriate. I don't think that if we're being human beings to each other, not just to the president of the United States, you may or may not like, but just in general, if we're just being human the way that we're all supposed to be, I think most of us can understand the intention was not to bring down the seriousness of one of those issues to the level of the other. That was not the intention of the comparison by a man that is often attacked on a daily basis for these kind of things. And he will be probably throughout the day and on social media and everywhere else today. And fine, that's how you want to take it. That's how things have gone for a while for the man. But it is, I think, something that continues to rally his supporters because they like the fact that he is not protected in his words. And at times it creates problems that probably everyone in his administration, for lack of a better word, problems, by the way, wishes they didn't have. They wish that this could have gone a different way. But that's the big story of the day. And I covered it. I even played Joe Scarborough for you. So see, I'm fair and balanced. All right, a quick break. This is the Chad Benson Show. Greg Collins filling in.
I, you, he, she, it. Lucy is a girl.
Point of personal privilege, please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Shut up, boo. Ain't nobody got time for that.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I got a few different viral things that made me laugh today that I'd like to share with you. The first is a kid who put this video up on, I believe, the social media platform TikTok, which is still a thing. I don't know how much longer it will be a thing, but she's laughing because she knows one of her classmates didn't know the answer to a question and got around it because, well, it's 2020 and people are doing school at home. So the way in which the other kid got around it, I guess, is by faking that their audio is going in and out. And I guess all the kids in the class have this audio. So maybe that's why this individual knew that this was happening and put it up on social media. But this is what it sounds like. They essentially played a soundbite into the computer instead of speaking when called on by a teacher. And then you get this. And then you don't answer the question. But the kid, it's not anyone breaking up. And I'll tell my producer, Phil, by the way, if he got panicked for a second, that wasn't me losing my connection. That's just a kid getting around a question from a teacher into that. I love it. I love the fact that this audio is just sitting there at anybody's disposal. They're essentially like little radio hosts now. They got a soundboard, they play the sound, and they ignore the question entirely. And I guess you got to make sure the video's off because it might not all correspond the right way, or you have to rehearse so you can act that out correctly. But I guess all the kids traded this around, and maybe you'll be hearing it a bunch. That's hilarious to me, and I think we got to try to use it in real life once we get back to there. If you don't want to answer a question that someone asks you in the real world for any reason, you should have this on your cell phone and just be like, we disconnected right there. I'm sorry. I can't keep talking to you. Craig, you're in my face. Craig, you're here in person. You're not on the phone. Oh, right. Okay. This isn't going to work the way I hoped it would. I love it. I love that audio. I think it's very funny. I also saw this story, and I have just enough time to cover it with very little time left before I got to take a break. Okay, let's just use the word. They're two nudists. They want to move their house in the UK, and I was going to use a better word, but I couldn't think of one. They put out an ad. They would like someone to help them move. There's one requirement, though, because they live a certain lifestyle, because they're only, in a certain type of attire or lack thereof, they need the third person who's going to get paid well. I think it's like 2,000 euro or something like that, so it's a decent amount of money. But they also got to live the life for a day. They have to show up, derobe, and help you move. And my only comment, and I don't know if this is fair because I'm aware that for different people this is going to be true and not true, but for me it's true. Anyone that you'd actually want to see naked wouldn't necessarily, I sort of struggled so much to even say that word, they wouldn't necessarily be great at helping you move. And also in general, even if they are someone that you might want to see in that world, I don't think you want to see them pick up heavy things and move them around the house. That's not exactly but I guess that's not the issue here. The issue here is just that the two individuals want to live that life, and they want anyone that comes in or out of it for even a small amount of time to live it too. So you get 2,000 euro, but you got to do the entire move nude with the other two people, the husband and wife who are moving. This is the strangest. It's gone viral because it's the strangest post you'll ever see in your life. And I am personally not volunteering, in case anyone was wondering. This is the Chad Benson Show. I'm Craig Collins filling in for now.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. I'm filling in. Chad is on vacation. He will be back, I believe, on Monday, and I think I get to be with you all week, depending on how each one of these shows go and how many crazy things I talk about. But I don't think I could actually match some of the things that were said last night on an interview between Laura Ingraham and the President of the United States, because people are confused. Now, look, I'll say this about this audio I'm about to play, and I am not part of QAnon. I'm not involved in that world. I don't know how to tweet well enough to, I think, get attention in that world, and I don't intend to. If this is true, we shouldn't understand it, right? Like if the stuff that is talked about here that's also getting a pretty decent amount of publicity today, something that the president said yesterday, is accurate and not a guy saying stuff and kind of getting a little, over his skis in what he intends to say or how he intends for it to come off, then we shouldn't get it. Then it shouldn't make any sense because it's all deep, confusing, weird things. And so is it possible that everything being said right now is accurate? Yeah. The guy's the president. He would know stuff we don't know. So maybe it is. And he references that this is all getting investigated. So it's possible. But as you and I hear it as just, people that don't have the briefings, this doesn't sound like something that might necessarily be accurate. He was asked who is controlling Joe Biden. That was the question, which, come on, Laura, if you want to lead a guy to water and help him drink, you don't necessarily ask him who he thinks is controlling Joe Biden, although you teased that it was the Obama people, which probably is a more expected answer, not the one given.
Who do you think is pulling Biden's strings? Is it former Obama
people
officials?
That you've never heard of. People that are in the dark shadows, people that...
What does that mean? That sounds like conspiracy theory, dark shadows.
No, people that you haven't heard of. They're people that are on the streets. They're people that are controlling the streets. We had somebody get on a plane from a certain city this weekend, and in the plane, it was almost completely loaded with thugs wearing these dark uniforms, black uniforms with gear and this and that. They're on a plane.
Where's this?
I'll tell you sometime, but it's under investigation right now.
Okay, look, we're 35 minutes into a 1-minute answer on who's pulling the strings on former Vice President Joe Biden. And if this is all accurate, if all the things being said right now are true, which I am saying if, because I don't know, apparently it's also being investigated, so we might not know any of it. We're not supposed to get it. Like, it sounds crazy because if it's true, it's definitely stuff that's being hidden from the public. At the same time, it sounds crazy. Let's try to be as honest as we can. I'm sorry, Mr. President. I don't mean to be mean today. But it's probably something we would have coached you not to say had you been on the team. And even if you had, I don't know that he would have listened. But let's hear a little bit more.
But they came from a certain city, and this person was coming to the Republican National Convention. And there were like 7 people on the plane like this person. And then a lot of people were on the plane to do big damage. They were coming
planning for Washington.
Yeah, this is all happening.
But the money is coming from somewhere.
Money is coming from,
how can it be tracked?
From some very stupid rich people that have no idea that if their thing ever succeeded, which it won't.
Okay, look, this is again why some people like this man. He just says some very stupid rich people. Is that the way that we're used to presidents speaking? No. It's not, but is that the way that sometimes you can laugh with a buddy if they say a thing? Let's hear that again.
Happening.
But the money is coming from somewhere.
Money is coming from,
how can it be tracked?
From some very stupid rich people that have no idea that if their thing ever succeeded, which it won't.
I love it. I love that. That's the knee-jerk reaction to the question, additional questions asked. Like, well, but the money's coming from, well, it's coming from dumb people. They're real stupid, the people who are doing this. So they need to stop because it's not going to work. And again, this is also going to be viral. It's been covered heavily today as one of the things said in that interview just the other evening. And the truth is that if this is all accurate, you got to eat your words. You got to decide that, okay, this was a president telling us stuff he shouldn't maybe be telling us, but stuff that is potentially real. And we won't understand it if that's the case, or the opposite, or you're embellishing a tad because, well, you come from the world of reality TV. And every so often, I think, lean that way instead of the way you are probably more expected to lean. Again, not supposed to. I don't know. He also talked about Fauci, which I thought was interesting during the interview, saying that he likes the guy, but doesn't usually disagree with him. Dr. Fauci is certainly someone that had a lot of attention and was appearing a lot on all kinds of interviews. There was a time period where this guy was, I think, sleeping like 3-4 hours a day and interviewed everywhere. As he was doing interviews with celebrities and anybody and everyone that kind of dialed the phone number. If they got Fauci at a moment when he wasn't doing something else, he was interviewing. And now that certainly that profile has faded, and maybe partially because he's not a part of the task force briefings on a regular basis, or that we even have them anymore. But here, let's hear this.
I get along with him very well. I disagree with a lot of what he said. He said, keep it open for China. That was a big mistake, and he admits it. I get along with him, but every once in a while he'll come up with one that I say, where did that come from?
Again, this is a different human talking. I want to hear that again.
With one that I say, where did that come from?
Sorry, buddy.
I inherited him. He was here. He was a part of this huge piece of machinery. I didn't put anybody in charge. He was here. He's been here for 40 years.
1984.
Okay, he's been here for many, many years. You inherit a lot of people. It's part of the machinery. And you have some you love, some you don't. I like them. I don't agree with them that often, but I like them.
He makes that statement twice at the end of the answer that he likes Dr. Anthony Fauci because so many people in media just wanted him to hate each other. They wanted that narrative to be a part of the conversation, that not only is there a disagreement, not only are these problems in who is being trusted and who is having advice that is effectively changing the president's decisions, if you agree or disagree with what the president was doing at the time. The more important narrative to a lot of media became whether or not they were buddies, which is just very strange, and one that continues to get addressed by both individuals, by President Trump and by Dr. Fauci whenever asked about it, because there's no personal animosity. There is a disagreement in how to do things, but there is no personal dislike, which is just a very silly world in which we all live. All right, let's take one more clip. I don't mean to lean too heavily on this conversation, but it certainly was a conversation that I think is getting a lot of traction today. President Trump talked about a lot of different things. He also talked about vaccines, and he may or may not have tipped what he might feel is a more appropriate move forward, the herd immunity that you're starting to hear more and more about. It's something that Sweden did with interesting outcomes. I think that they had a scary amount of death in the country, but they did never have to close, and the economy survived. And the thought, if done absolutely perfectly, is that you protect those who are most at risk of serious illness, and you allow those who aren't at risk of serious illness to get coronavirus or whatever it is, and then have a herd immunity to get through a disease like this without having to, wait for a vaccine that we're still not 100% sure is going to be the treatment that will work, that will get us through the end of this. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with the herd immunity concept. I'm just trying to explain it a tad. But here's Laura and the president on that.
Are you worried that on the push for vaccines, these fast vaccines for COVID, you might be splitting a coalition of Americans, frankly, in both parties, who aren't comfortable
well,
with
once
these
you
vaccines?
get to a certain number, we use the word herd, right? Once you get to a certain number, it's going to go away. So, it doesn't have to be. But, yeah, a lot of people are not going to want to do it. A lot of people don't want to do the flu
Should
vaccine.
it be mandatory?
I never had the flu, but I never had a shot.
The answer is no, it should not be mandatory. And he never had the flu, but he never had a shot. That cut off just a tad. The president talking more about herd immunity as a potential fix for our situation as we continue to just spread COVID-19. And we've done a lot of things, obviously. I'm not telling anyone something they don't know to try to prevent the spread, and it's still spreading. So anyone that says to you that nothing was done, we shut down a lot of places, and we allowed the states to make those decisions. We allowed governors to make that call. Every single issue became one that was more readily available, more pertinent to be made by those who were boots on the ground kind of decision making. So it's even odd that this all falls on the heels of the president, on the feet of the president, that he is blamed for the reaction, because he did just kind of give it to states, which I thought was part of what a lot of people might have intended to do or wanted to have happen, to give control to those who even were of obviously other political parties and make the decisions they want to make. All right, let's play some fun audio just because we need a little palate cleanser from all that. I have audio of two guys talking to each other while driving in a car. This got viral just because it's silly on social media. But the one guy notices that a piece of wood has been screwed to the ceiling of the vehicle. Just a random little piece, a little 2x4, and he's got to know why. And the answer is awesome. And this is just my opinion as someone who also believes in this concept from time to time. I can't hurt. So here we go. This is two gentlemen talking about why one guy decided to screw a piece of wood into the top of his vehicle.
Hey, man, what the hell you got that damn piece of wood screwed to your ceiling for?
Where, here? Yeah. So whenever I say something and I don't mean it, and I don't want to jinx myself, I can just say, knock on wood.
Okay, one, the guy answering the question, the guy who said, if I say something and I don't mean it, I can just say knock on wood. He sounds kind of like a Matthew McConaughey. Maybe not, the polished version, but he's somebody's. He's a poor man's Matthew McConaughey at very best. But I love just the sound of the end there. But these two guys talking about the piece of wood that, he for some reason screwed into his car, and just the fact that it's going to work out if he ever needs it. I hear one more time. I want to hear that last little bit.
I don't want to jinx myself. I can just say, knock on wood.
That's great. This to me is fantastic. Knock on wood. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And you've done it. You got some superstition. If you say, if you make a dark joke about someone getting hurt or something bad happening, and then you immediately say, I gotta knock on wood to make sure everybody's okay. He's got one in his car. This guy must do this constantly. And honestly, I'd like to see him in a movie opposite Matthew, because I think the two of them would do a pretty good job and probably just reshoot this scene. And that's all you need. And that can be a car commercial. I know Matthew's in the business, so maybe I've now workshopped something that's valuable, and I've launched this guy's career because I find him very entertaining. All right, this is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in for the day.
Set Chad straight. Text the show 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
Please do set the Chad Benson Show straight all the time. My name is Craig Collins. I'm filling in. Chad Benson is back in just a few days. He'll be back at the end of the week. I am thrilled to be here with you guys. Interesting news. I saw a survey of 2,000 Americans found, anyone over 21, by the way, was asked this question. If you thought quarantine made you a better person, if the time shut down in some weird way helped you, I guess, get over some things, maybe fix some things. Divorce has skyrocketed. There's certainly some negatives that came from the world of quarantine at the very least. But 55% of Americans said, yeah, I think that having to deal with that, having to go through, that kind of everyday life made me a better person. They were even a bit embarrassed by some of the things that they valued or cared about pre-quarantine, saying that now up to 70% of people will change something. They've learned something about themselves, and they look forward to being a better me. And that's all because of apparently taking a whole bunch of time to not do anything, which just makes sense. Although at the same time, if you spent your quarantine maybe sitting around a television, binge watching several episodes of TV show, there are ways you could also felt a little bad about you during quarantine. I might have been the guy I just described a second ago there. But I like this. I like the fact that we're continuing to look for silver linings in anything and everything that we experience as people. And this would be one of those things. One of the other things asked is, what kind of things did you do? Did you experiment with anything? Did you get into any food or drinks that maybe you hadn't tried before? And apparently a lot of people went down some sort of wine rabbit hole, for lack of a better term. Rabbit hole, a wine awakening is what it's called in this article. You experimented with different kinds of wines. With cooking, 39% of people. You drank more wine, 38%. You learned something different about wine, 37% said that. Tried new varieties, 36%. It's crazy. Watched videos, read articles, and tried to pair wine offerings with those things. That's intense. 29%. Shared a bottle with a loved one while connecting virtually, 26%. Set up your own at-home wine tasting, 26% as well. And attended a virtual tasting, 22%. Apparently, that was the go-to. If you were bored during quarantine, become a wine connoisseur was, I guess, the option many chose. By the way, 60% of Americans intend to travel for Labor Day. Coming up this weekend, almost everybody is road tripping. I think it might be appropriate to try to get the favorite road trip songs on our social media pages, because that makes or breaks a road trip. You know that you have to travel with someone who can tolerate your kind of music and you can tolerate theirs, and obviously even better if it's the same kind of music. But this is the utter most important thing. More important probably than where you're going is the mixtape you're listening to along the way. So go to our Facebook pages, go to our social media pages, and tell us your song or songs that you need on a road trip. And I might tell you some of mine later on this week. You can also go to The Craig Collins Show on Facebook.com if you want to tell me directly. My audience is a little bit smaller than Chad's, by the way. One last thing. I know that I got a break in just a bit, but I think this is interesting, right? We have politicians here who struggle. And actually, as I set up this story by saying that our politicians aren't as bad as people in other countries, I realize that I'm kind of making a joke about Bill Clinton accidentally, but I'll get there. We'll figure it out. Apparently, a government official in the Philippines, a boss, was on a Zoom conference call. And I guess this individual, who is a fairly well-known guy in the area and a fairly high-up government official, thought his video was muted, but that his audio was still working on a work conference call for the government in the Philippines. And the guy, I guess, started to have what I guess we'd call a bit of a relations with his secretary while still on the call. Other members that were on the meeting realized that this was going on, because how could you not? They pulled audio of it. They pulled video of it, which none of that's happening on this show at all. And now this guy is probably going to get fired. I think he might actually be willingly resigning. But how does this happen? That is my question, is how in the world. I was just talking to my producer, Phil, about this, and he's like, why wouldn't you wait? At the very least, why wouldn't you just, have the government meeting now, and then eventually, I don't know if you feel good about all the other Zoom conference calls you would have had with this guy, but it's crazy. Part of the article, though, on the Daily Mail, addresses a lot of the different situations that might have arisen. I don't mean any of these as puns. And then it also talks about the other work that the secretary does in the office. It says she does things like handle some of the finances. There's concerns, I guess, as far as whether or not she'll be appropriate in keeping her job, and she has a little bit more involvement than maybe some people would. But I did notice that when it lists the additional jobs of the secretary in this office, it skipped one. That's just me. It's just me pointing it out. And I do try to compare how our politicians aren't like the people in this story. And then I remember again, we had this guy, he was president. His name was Bill Clinton one time. And, there was no Zoom conference call involved, but pretty much more. I just don't get it. This is the kind of story I don't understand. I wish I could help so many people involved in this figure out how to be better people. And the most important piece of advice does come from Phil today. If you're going to do something like this, just wait till your video conference call is over. If a camera is on, assume it's watching you and feeding to the world. Craig Collins on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. I am filling in for today. Chad will actually be back on Monday. He has a long and well-deserved vacation. Hopefully he's having a good time out there. Tuesday, probably, actually, because Monday's a holiday. But he'll be back next week. That's what I should be saying. Amazon received U.S. regulatory approval to start drone delivery trials. This happened yesterday. I missed it. This is interesting. Amazon Inc.'s drone service has received federal approval to allow the company to begin testing commercial deliveries through its drone fleet, the e-commerce giant said on Monday. Amazon Prime Air, which is just I feel like that's a bit of a fancy title that's not necessary. The company's special service delivering packages in 30 minutes or less by flying them to your house has been approved and will start testing very, very soon in some select areas. The company joins Alphabet Inc., and a couple other places with that sort of approval. And none of the other places, I think, use drones as much as Amazon intends to. I don't think I'm ready for this. I wonder if you are, and please just, reach out to us on our social media pages and let us know. But I don't think I can have, the whole everything in the sky covered in Amazon drones, because once you can get one or two of these packages that way, they're going to do all of them. Let's be honest. We all get it. We know the Bezos. We know he likes to save as much money as possible. Fire all of his, truck drivers and stop having any of that cost is definitely a Bezos move, if ever there was one. So Amazon Prime Air is going to be loaded into the skies. And actually, there was a story I think I talked about yesterday about a Japanese company making a flying car that will be on the market in the next few years. So, man, think about that. If that all comes at the same time, if we have drone delivery and that's when we get flying car, that just seems like either a video game or something very sad, because in either scenario, it's probably going to cause more harm than good. And they have approval. They'll start testing it out. I like my things and I like getting them quickly. At the same time, I don't think I'm ready for a whole bunch of robots flying through the sky. And I wonder how loud they're going to be, too. I think drones are relatively quiet, but if you have the same amount of them as you have cicadas, then I think maybe we can go the other way. Maybe eventually it does get annoying for those. But that's just me. I'll move on. I saw this story and I became very intrigued in a lot of ways. One, because I'm Catholic, and I guess this is probably why it's a pull to me. But two, because I thought this was just an interesting choice as far as a coding AI kind of teaching decision. So this guy makes an artificial intelligence, and he wants it to understand the human language. He wants it to understand, I guess, human beings to some extent. So what does he feed this computer? Just the Bible. The only thing that the computer learns in order to be somewhat artificial intelligence, however you want to say it, self-aware, is just reading and rereading every part of the King James Bible it is now spitting out its own phrases, its own thoughts, and it's been doing this for a little while. And a lot of people are calling it the AI Jesus because all of the thoughts, all of the things being said are very connected or very in the same vein. But some of them are a little disturbing. One of the phrases produced by the AI said, "The plague shall be the fathers in the world and the same in my people, and that he may be more abundant in the mouth of the Lord of hosts." I don't know what that means. I'm a little confused. Now, the AI also apparently gave another prophecy, "And he shall come against him and said, as the Lord liveth." This is a computer that read only the Bible, speaking on its own. For anyone that has no idea what I'm quoting right now, "As the Lord liveth, that he may be fulfilled, which was spoken, he said, thou art the spirit of your good works, that ye have not yet seen, nor anything of the service thereof." I don't even know if I can keep going. "And a certain censer and the sin offering." That doesn't even make sense to me. But they're just spitting out, I guess they're calling them prophecies. And this should be disturbing, I think, to a lot of people. The computer has created about 60,000 different phrases so far, according to its developer. And a lot of them have been shared on social media. Some seem to be very valuable to people, and other ones seem to be a tad confusing. And then one actually seems to be very self-aware. It said whether or not God created man or man created God might be a topic of eternal debate. But what surely cannot be debated is man's creation of this AI, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and AI Jesus is now apparently a thing that's out there. If you have interest in checking it out more, I don't know. It just disturbs me. One last, and I guess this is kind of a feel-good story, and then maybe I'll move on to some serious things. The oldest living couple to have been married for a Guinness record amount of time was recently announced, and this couple seems great. They seem very adorable, and they must be great at getting over fights. Honestly, if there's one piece of advice as a guy who's been married a little while, I'd love to know what their secret is to that. They've been married for 79 years. They are 110 and 104, so collectively they're 214 years old, and they have been married a majority of that time. They said that they were high school sweethearts, and they just, obviously fell in love and kept going since 1941. That is a Guinness record, and awesome to celebrate that in the face of everything else that we've heard in the news recently. So I thought that was pretty great. All right, let's shift gears to something a tad serious, just because I probably should. I probably can't keep talking about the things that entertain me as much as they do. There was a conversation that happened between Laura Ingraham and between the president, and a lot of different things have been pulled from that conversation. One of the more interesting talking points, though, is the impact of law and order on the election now moving forward. I will play a little bit of audio of the president talking about that and actually kind of casually referencing some polling numbers that might be helping him. And then I want to actually have an earnest conversation about why it took so long for us to all get here together. But here's that first piece of audio.
Law and order has increased by poll numbers a lot. We've done a great job in COVID, but we don't get the credit. We work through the governors. The governors have gotten everything they wanted. Every ventilator, we didn't have ventilators. We had empty cupboards when I got there. As they say, the cupboards were bare. I think they're going crazy over the election. I think they're seeing what's happening. Joe Biden now today goes to Pittsburgh, right? So he goes to Pittsburgh. He wasn't scheduled to leave ever.
Yeah, he was not. And now he is making public appearances, although no one was there. So I don't know why he did that. But he did go. And now one other piece of audio that's been floating quite a bit on social media, actually, comes from about a month ago or so. This is A.G. Barr talking about how he wishes that people on the left, how he wishes Democrats could do things like say violence is bad. He's talking about another topic as well, but you hear it in there. He references how mob violence is something that should be condemned, and for whatever reason it's not, and it confuses him. This was a month ago, so it's interesting that it took this long for messaging on both sides of the aisle to match on an issue like this. But here, let me just give you a little taste of this.
What makes me concerned for the country is this is the first time in my memory that the leaders of one of our great two political parties, the Democratic Party, are not coming out and condemning mob violence and the attack on federal courts. Why can't we just say, the violence against federal courts has to stop?
And mob violence is bad. These are things that he very much thinks that should have been said. And this is over a month ago that conversation happened. So it is interesting to hear the president reflecting on the fact that he does have a core issue that's been important to him way beyond any polling numbers. that he's been talking about for a while that seems to now be resonating with the American people because of that concern of violence in certain areas. And I did read, I think it was an article in the New York Times about how very much in a lot of the country, things are continuing to be safe. There is still protesting, there is still demonstrations, and those are safe. It's just a few communities that are seeing these issues crop up, and some of them are traditional communities that have problems with things like violence, like a Chicago, and then places that maybe aren't always on our radar as often, like Kenosha, Wisconsin, for example. But it's been a very interesting conversation the last 2 days because the violence does need to stop, and it should not have been this hard to get everybody on board with that. One last silly thing. You know what? Let's go back to a silly thing before I take a break. I saw this audio and I saw this video, and I laughed quite a bit about it. It is going viral as well. There is a bit of a reaction by a teacher. So, all ideas are good in the world of education, I think, until someone goes the wrong way with one. So this teacher thought it'd be fun. They're on a Zoom call. They're starting their work from home experience. She thought it would be a good idea to do like a little dance party to get everybody in the mood to then, I guess, learn for the day, maybe get the energy levels up. And she turned around and saw one of the students maybe getting a little too into the music and yelled at said student. Here's what that sounded like. Oh, wait, hold on 1 second. Hold on.
People dance! Susanna! I see your Susanna!
Okay, I'm going to play that for you again because I hit the wrong button for a bit there. So you got Hey Now by Outkast, I believe, playing. And she says, come on, everybody dance. And then she turns around and, Susanna is dancing a way that the teacher does not want her to dance on a Zoom conference call. One more time.
People dance! Susanna! I see your Susanna!
I don't know if that's funny to everybody. It's funny to me because that obviously is a problem depending on what age kids you're teaching, I guess. And I guess that, this is going to be a thing. But she goes so quickly from screaming, come on, everybody dance. Like, obviously, these are teenagers. They're not into whatever it is that you're trying to make them do, except for Susanna. And I guess she's a tad too interested. So you got to pump the brakes that way. This is a learning lesson for all involved, even the teacher. This is the Craig Collins Show. It's not that. It's not what it is at all. This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. Quick break. A lot more in just a bit.
Check out our Chad Benson Show Facebook page where you can hang out or hang your grievances out to dry. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. I'm filling in with you for today. Probably be here again tomorrow and a few more days. Chad is back next week. A man decided to jump into the Hudson River, which is never a good decision. But the reason why this guy from Jersey City decided to do it is probably why he's in the news and has been in the news since Sunday night when he pole vaulted himself into a body of water. I would not get in. That's just me. He is 24 years old, and he was trying to save his soccer ball, quote, unquote. He wanted to. That's it. He had to get saved by police. They actually had to get him out of there via a bunch of different equipment and things. And all of this was just to save a soccer ball. And I know that times can be tough for a lot of people here, but you got to let that go, man. As far as all the things that maybe you decide you can get another one of somehow, or maybe just, never. It's fine. Soccer is a sport that maybe is not as popular here as other places, so maybe I'm being mean in that regard. But the fact that police actually had to save the guy after he nearly drowned, jumping into the river while trying to get a soccer ball is just the kind of thing we can't do. We've got enough problems this year. We can't have that be one of them, too. But that's my PSA for the day, just for him and anyone else out there that contemplates doing it next. This is good news. According to a new study, you do not have to treat your coworkers like crap in order to get ahead. I like the way that that's delivered. You're not going to believe this, is what it says. If some people seem to think the only way to get ahead is to do one sort of thing, you don't have to treat people like human garbage in order to one day be better than them. According to a new study by the University of California, Berkeley, people who are hostile, dishonest, or manipulative with their coworkers don't get any further in their careers than people who are actually decent human beings at work. The research says there's always been a question whether people who are, quote, aggressive, scheming, and selfish get ahead more than others. but that has never been a definitive study until now, telling us one way or the other who gets ahead and who does not. The reason we might think bad people succeed is because they're more likely to remember. We're more likely to remember them. So that's why maybe the highlights of your career are those evil people you work with. But good news from University of California, Berkeley, whether or not they maybe get a promotion, they eventually flame out wherever they are because, terrible people wind up getting in trouble somehow, I guess. This is just my opinion, and apparently that study kind of backs it up. I also saw this. There's a viral video going around, which I'm not sure if you want to watch it. A woman fell asleep, and this is in Russia, by the way, and all of a sudden she woke up because she couldn't breathe because there was something that had crawled in her mouth. For whatever reason, while saving her life, someone else chose to take video footage of the moment. A 4-foot snake was removed from this woman's mouth that had slithered inside while she was sleeping. Talk about, I don't know how you make this year worse on a personal level for any one individual than surprise them one day with a 4-foot snake down the throat. That just, to me, that sounds like the worst version of anything that you could ever experience. And just having to even play catch up on what's going on in the first place and eventually get to the point where, all right, I fell asleep and this snake decided to try to strangle me from the inside. It's surreal. And the fact that someone else was like, it was a video moment. They're going to save her life, so I might as well record, is part of maybe also our problem in the years in which we live right now. We all got to put the cell phones down when people are struggling for their life. That's probably as good a time as any if a snake is a surprise situation there. So I don't know. It's just crazy to me that the story exists, that there's video footage, and the fact that this woman now has to live with that the rest of her life. One last quick thing that I found kind of funny, and this is just other silly news that I like to gravitate toward because the year in which we live is tough. Aspiring teachers were caught on an exam. They're college age kids. They're trying to become educators. They were caught cheating. And it's weird to me. And anybody that's gone to college knows that some people cheat. That happens. I'm sure it happens in every age of education. But certainly by the time you get to college, some people. There's people in your life that are college graduates that you wonder how they got through the school, how they have their degree. They probably cheated. That's the right answer. But these teachers, it's a bad look for them to go into a exam to have all the answers written on their fingernails. By the way, they painted answers to their nails, which to me is either a really, really specific amount of paint going on there or, just not a very hard test. If it's only 10 answers, you got to get. So I don't know which one it is, but it's definitely a bad look and probably the end of a lot of educational things there. It eliminated the suspicion of any kind of a fraud with authorities when they apparently were able to figure out that the women that had cheated on this test in order to pass and become educators to find young people had decided to go fingernail. That is, that's bold, by the way, because that's not necessarily something you're hiding. I think the fingernails are out there in the world, so it must have been a little bit deceptive as to how the answers were even on them. This is just bad cheating. I feel often when I talk about these stories, I'm trying to help people maybe commit crimes better or do bad things better. And in this situation, you just should have picked a different area. You don't go fingernail. And honestly, with the technology we have now, I don't know why it was so difficult. But yeah, they are in trouble. There's actually a good amount of teachers that all got caught trying to do this as a group. So we'll see how their careers go from here. But it's probably not going to go in a very good direction. I've got a lot of things to talk about today. There's a lot going on in the world that's serious. So don't worry. I don't just do the silly things. I talk about serious things too. President Trump obviously in the news. Joe Biden in the news as well. President Trump will be visiting Kenosha, so we'll have more on that too. This is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Viral story over the weekend. A woman leaned over the bar counter, stuck her mouth directly under the tap of a tap room in North Carolina, and just started chugging some beer. Her friends loved it. There's actually audio I could play, but it's really just people being drunk and cheering as one person is doing essentially a keg stand. She's been banned from that bar forever now, though, because she might have forgotten it's 2020 and we have some health concerns. So this is not the right year for that. But I can't believe that this has gone viral, too, that there's video out there of a woman who's like, hey, this makes sense to me, although, alcohol was involved. So maybe I shouldn't be as surprised as I'm being right now. But the update on that story, for anyone that's been following it, and I certainly have, she is now banned from at least that bar, probably from all bars in North Carolina, I'd imagine. I imagine nobody's letting her in. They're putting that photo on every wall in every establishment in the area and saying, if you see this lady, do not in any way, shape, or form serve this person because she is utterly reckless. Like, to be honest, I'm making some light of it. This is stupid. Like, every part of this story is dumb and should not happen in a year when we have to do things like wear masks to keep restaurants open. You don't go and take over a tap at a bar and just chug directly out of it. That is stupidity, and I feel pretty comfortable saying it. All right, let's get on to some other stories, some other big things in the news today. Certainly the conversation between the president and Laura Ingraham was a big story, the amount of things said, but also another conversation that happened about 24 hours or so ago was at a press conference. And at this press conference, the president was asked a very specific question about the person who is right now assumed to be a shooter, a person in Kenosha, a Trump supporter, a person that is from the far right, and this person is accused of killing two and injuring one person at a rally. The reporters, two of them actually arguing for a bit at the press conference before one finally got the question out, wanted to ask the president why he seems to be defending this individual. And this is another big and heavily covered story in the way in which the president reacts to this specific news story. So let's play it, and then I'll react to our president.
We're looking at all of it. That was an interesting situation. You saw the same tape as I saw, and he was trying to get away from them, I guess, it looks like, and he fell, and then they very violently attacked him, and it was something that we're looking at right now, and it's under investigation, but I guess he was in very big trouble. He would have been. He probably would have been killed. But it's under investigation.
Do you think private citizens should be taking guns?
I'd like to see law enforcement take care of everything. I think everything should be taken care of, law enforcement. But again, we have to give our cops back, our police back, their dignity, the respect. They're very talented people.
That is the entirety of the answer. However, obviously, the first half of the answer is much different. Then the second half of the answer is to how tolerable it will be to a lot of people who feel it's inappropriate to defend someone who is accused of murder. And that, I think, is, again, trying to be as honest as I can today, a fair conversation to have. It is confusing. There are other people who have stepped out about this. I think people in the television world, people in all different kinds of places, saying that if law enforcement isn't allowed to do their job, and this is the take, this is not my take, I'm just relaying the take, so please, no hate mail to me or to the Chad Benson Show, but if the law enforcement officials aren't allowed to do their job, if they're being encouraged by politicians in an area or wherever to pull back, to allow these situations to become worse and worse and worse, it's not entirely surprising that this was an inevitable outcome of law enforcement not being more active in these situations. It's not terribly surprising. Is it tragic? Yes, it's still tragic. It's not as shocking as maybe it would be in a world we knew just about a year ago, when maybe law enforcement wasn't as aware of their potential to have positive and or negative outcomes when interacting with the public. And if politicians, a large majority of them on the left, weren't pushing for things like defunding the police. If all of these things didn't exist, if we're in a world in which, a riot breaks out in a certain area or something else happens, it would just be handled by the law enforcement officials the way it's been for years in our country. And that would, I think, be part of what's changing now so many of our opinions, the American voter, whoever, into adopting some of that law and order type of conversation that the president has been having for a while. But in doing all this and talking about all this, and again, this is all accusations. There's all kinds of videos out there right now. But inevitably, and I know that some people tell me it's unfair to say this, but it is, I guess, the best possible way I can digest something is to fully understand it, let the process play out, let the court cases play out, let all the information come to light if there is any more and if there's not. And after all of that, I always feel more comfortable reacting in the environment where we know the full truth as opposed to maybe not knowing it. And I'm not saying we don't. Again, I don't want to say that I agree with the president at all here. I don't. I do not defend someone who shows up with a gun to a rally, even as a counter-protester, and winds up taking life. I think that is obviously a demonstration of how the cops are not as involved as they should be in situations like this, because this wouldn't happen. I don't think that this would be the kind of scenario in which the cops would have stayed back for as long as they did if a guy is walking around with a weapon like that in an environment like that. But they do in a year like 2020 and in a year where there's so many conversations on all sides of the aisle about how valuable and effective their encounters and their interactions are in all situations, including ones where a lot of us think it's just obvious that they need to be more active. But the president speaking about this and saying that there is an investigation going on, that he has seen video, and that there may be some additional details that might shape his opinion. Now, I'm cleaning up what he said, I guess, more than you should. And I don't know. To me, I think the more valuable part of the conversation is the second part, when he does say how law enforcement needs to be able to do their job. I think we all agree with that, so that tragedies no longer happen, and that peaceful protesting is allowed to happen, but nothing else is allowed to take place. But this is another moment of media certainly attacking the president for what is not necessarily... I'm just going to play the audio again, because I don't... You know what? I don't even want to shape it for you. I don't want to tell you exactly what I feel he is or isn't saying, because I know I'm doing it through the cone of me. But if you listen to it and listen to it with an open mind and try to hear exactly what he's saying, then decide, if you hear this covered a lot, if it's fair to say that he's 100% defending the individual who is accused of killing other people, or if he's maybe, non-committally putting some information out there as to what could or couldn't be the end result of an investigation. I guess I am kind of shaping it now. But this is just one more time the audio, the way the president sees it. And again, I'm not saying I agree. I'm just saying when I listen to it, I guess I hear one thing.
We're looking at all of it. That was an interesting situation. You saw the same tape as I saw. And he was trying to get away from them, I guess, it looks like. And he fell. And then they very violently attacked him. And it was something that we're looking at right now, and it's under investigation. But I guess he was in very big trouble. He would have been. He probably would have been killed. But it's under investigation.
That is the controversial part of the statement. The second part of the conversation, not controversial. Here you go.
Do you think private citizens should be taking guns?
I'd like to see law enforcement take care of everything. I think everything should be taken care of, law enforcement. But again, we have to give our cops back, our police back, their dignity, the respect. They're very talented people.
The president offers his opinion. He offers his opinion when he doesn't have all the facts sometimes, and he demonstrates that he doesn't have all the facts by the way in which he talks about something when he's giving that opinion that gets him in trouble or makes people feel as though he's a lot of things, even more than just, having a bad opinion on something. They think this is inciting violence. They think this is a lot of different things. I don't know. When I hear it, I don't know if I hear what other people hear. And I guess it's up to each of us individually to sort that out as best we can. There is one other reaction the president had during this conversation with Laura Ingraham that I talked about a bit earlier, where he talked about Portland in general. He's accused of lying in this piece of audio by saying that the issues in Portland have existed for a long time. I'm even not exactly sure that he's lying, but here's that audio.
Well, these are terrible and very incompetent people. Portland's been burning for many years. For decades it's been burning, but now it's gotten to a point they don't want to do. I watched the mayor try and get in with these people, and he went to a protest, and he went in there. They almost killed him. If he didn't have security with him, he had 5 security guards, he would have been dead, just like they would have done to Rand Paul, who's a great guy, and his wife, Kelly. It is a disgrace when you look at what's happening.
Pat, I don't know if a lot of people say that the take there is unfair or maybe even a lie. And then you look at the fact that there has been a lot of protesting that has gone on in Portland and thus, for whatever reason, a lot of what they call street activism and maybe even some violence. And it has taken place over the course of several years. There are a lot of notable different things that took place. 2016 is one that comes immediately to mind. The president says decades, but it certainly is a history that extends beyond 2020. It might not be covered that way, though, by the news when they play that audio for you and discuss it as well. So I'm doing it here. This is the Chad Benson Show. I am Craig Collins filling in. That was a downer of a segment. Let's talk about something a little bit more uplifting after this.
Being antisocial sucks. Hang with Chad's friends on Facebook, The Chad Benson Show. And if you just need some alone time, head on over to Twitter at Chad Benson Show. Either way, we can't wait to meet the real you.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. There is a problem in Florida. There's actually, at times, a lot of problems in Florida, but this one is one that we might have figured out a solution for. That's the red tide. It's the scourge of Florida's Gulf Coast, and it's obviously something that's growing without a lot of ways to check it, without a lot of ways to kill it, except maybe beer. That's right, kind of sort of beer anyway. Darwin Brewing Company has been testing and demonstrating how the spent grains that are used to produce beer may be put into these bodies of water, and the molecules that exist within the used grain is demonstrated to kill a small amount of the organism in red tide within just a few hours. So the solution potentially, and I love the fact that I'm going to put this out there in the world and that I think it's actually getting out there as well, although it is, again, a brewing company that's doing it. The solution to fix the red tide problem in Florida, drink more. Drink a whole lot more this year and put all that grain in the water, and then boom, problem solved. So if ever you've been given a challenge like this, I think a lot of us, and probably a lot of people in Florida, can rise to this occasion and get this all fixed, get this done. And honestly, the next time I guess you're sitting alone and having one too many and someone asks you what you're doing, just say you're fighting red tide. Just be like, that's all. This is me. This is my one-man army against a very serious and difficult problem for other people to solve. I'm doing it all by myself, and I'm doing it right here, and I'll be back at this bar again tomorrow to do it all over again. Also, I saw this in the news, and I laughed quite hard because the guy is 61 years old. He lives in Oklahoma City. He got arrested because he went to a Taco Bell drive-thru, and you wouldn't know when you're placing the order. It's only when you're supposed to give the guy food and or he's supposed to pay that you realize there's a problem. The guy was totally naked. He claimed that all his clothes were in the wash, and that's the reason that he couldn't wear anything to Taco Bell. It actually turns out that the guy has a criminal history, and he does this kind of thing a lot. So he's, quote unquote, a sexual deviant, a terrible person. But that's an awful, awful version of a lie. Like that makes absolutely no sense. The man, I just washed every piece of clothing I have. Every single one is in my washing machine at the same time. It's not done yet, but darn it, I need Taco Bell. I have to go out right now and get myself some tacos. Otherwise, I'm not going to make it. And I just cannot wait in all these clothes. I'm not going to wear something that's wet or something that's soapy. No, I'm going to go the other way. His name is Christopher Sale. Obviously, getting arrested is probably the least of his concerns right now. He's going to be in a bit more trouble. It's crazy, man. And he asked for hot sauce, and he asked for as many napkins as they could provide him. And I don't know if that was because he was, not wearing anything, but that was the end of that because the police were called and he was apprehended. But I just don't understand the excuse. Maybe I don't understand a lot of things. I shouldn't try to say that other parts of it make sense. But the old I don't have any clothes because everything I own is in the wash excuse makes no sense. Netflix will be making some of its products available for people who don't have a paid membership to the service, mostly because they want to enhance the amount of views they're getting on their original content. These are things like episodes of Stranger Things, the TV show. One of their more well-known movies, Bird Box, is something that will inevitably be free for a lot of people. They are opening up this content for multiple reasons, as I said, but mostly I think it is to brag about the total amount of views. No word on if it's actually going to contain commercials, which is what a lot of other a lot of other streaming services do for any of the free things that you might get. It's just a promotion for now to maybe demonstrate the value in the product, and maybe they'll turn the key off after, say, 30 days or so. But they will be making some of those things that your friends have all talked about, and because you've resisted the Netflix you haven't seen available for everybody. Other different TV shows and movies made available will include Murder Mystery, Grace and Frankie, and The Two Popes. Some of the more well-regarded products, as I said, will be out there for the world to see. I saw this story, and I can't help. I do an Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not going to do it here. I'm not. No, everybody does it. It's not good. You know, you've heard it before. But Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be doing his first scripted TV show. He's taking a stab at scripted television. He's going to star in a father-daughter spy series. This is a real story. There's no word yet on a title, a network, or a premiere date. Just the fact that it exists needed to be reported immediately to the Hollywood Reporter. Arnold Schwarzenegger has signed on for a scripted TV show. He will next be seen in Kung Fury 2. I guess that's an animated film of some kind. He's still attached to Triplets, a sequel to the 1988 classic Twins, but he will be on the television in the near future in a father-daughter spy series, which is just a whole lot of words to say all at once. You want me to do it. I don't want to do it. You want the Arnold Schwarzenegger, don't you? This is Arnold. I didn't want to do it. I couldn't fight it. That was bad. I know it was bad. That's fine. Please keep listening to the radio. But Arnold Schwarzenegger, I can't believe that this is the first time he's actually doing a scripted TV show, by the way, because for some reason I feel like he's done these before, but I guess that's just my memory and not any version of the truth whatsoever. Much like that guy at Taco Bell who lied about all his clothes being in the wash. None of them were probably in the wash whatsoever. All right, this is the Chad Benson Show. As I said, my name is Craig Collins filling in. I like to talk about wacky stories a lot. This is something I do and probably something I don't need to do as much as I do, but I can't help it. It's a crazy year. It's a crazy time. Give us a message on social media to anything that I've asked you about, by the way, throughout the day today. I'd love to know what your car trip song is. There's a lot of people that are going to be traveling for the holiday, for Memorial Day. They're going to be taking road trips, and we all know that it's important to have music selection being a top priority in that going well as far as that trip you take with friends and or family. And so I'd love to know on our social media pages, on the Chad Benson Facebook page or any of the other ones, what your song or band of choice is for those long drives. I will talk about mine maybe a little bit later on in the show, and maybe we'll do this again throughout the week. And I just love putting stuff on social media or asking you, our fans, to put stuff on social media. So when Chad comes back, he's like, what was happening on the show? What did he talk about? He talked about a naked guy at Taco Bell. Why are these the things we're doing? Well, hey, this is what I do. This is Craig Collins filling in on the show. As I said, after the break, we will talk about some serious things, though, because they are important and they are in the news. And I promise I'll get to those, too. All right. More in just a bit. Craig Collins filling in.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. One of the biggest stories of the day today, that the president will be traveling to Kenosha, Wisconsin. He would like to speak on the civil unrest that's existed there. He'd like to speak about his zero tolerance for what I think a lot of people would call some of the criminal activities that have taken place in this community and other ones. He is being criticized for a lot of the things he said as recently as last evening. One is a very bad comparison he made between law enforcement officials and the game of golf, and just a few other things that I guess he said over time. The biggest concern, if you're listening to some, is that he will incite more violence by traveling to this community, that because he will be present there, it is more likely for people to do more harm to each other and or the community, even though he is the president of the United States. And this is the most common decision any president in the history of our country makes when things like this happen, to go visit, to go be in an area like this to speak from the area is something that I can't think of another president ever really truly being criticized for intending to do. Because no matter what he says, well, he's in that area, and it's not going to be anywhere near as I guess, violence-inducing as some people will have you believe. But no matter what he says, he's bringing awareness to the issue for maybe people who somehow, which might shock you, but somehow still have not grasped or understood the entirety of this situation by simply being there and allowing him to go, which he's obviously allowed to, but not maybe criticizing just the idea that he's choosing to travel there and speak there, but allow him to speak, listen to him speak, and then maybe decide after that whether or not it was appropriate for him to travel there. Seems like the much more reasonable decision for anyone than the criticism that he's getting so abundantly in so many places for his intention to even go into the community. And I know that the family of Jacob Blake was talked about a little bit because the president did want to visit with them and they did not want to visit with him. That's their decision. That's a family dealing with certain things, tragic things. And obviously there's a lot of other emotional things going on for them right now. So they don't need to be dragged into this any more than maybe they already have. But the fact that, obviously the president wanted to meet with them, I thought was a good thing. Because we'll say this in general about the current president of the United States, about Donald Trump. He is willing to speak to anyone, everyone, and oftentimes gets criticized for that, whether he agrees with them or disagrees with them. Case in point is some of the world leaders that he's had personal conversations with. And so if you're a person who agrees or disagrees with the president, but you're given an opportunity to have an audience with him, I think that if you're capable of doing it, if you aren't dealing with the things that this family is dealing with, for a lot of other individuals out there, a lot of politicians out there, it only makes sense to talk to the guy. It does. And honestly, I think that a lot of what people say about one-on-one interactions with him is very different than what people assume it would be from what they've seen on television. They seem to, from what I've heard from the people that I know who've actually even interviewed our current president, that he's a very different person when you interact with him directly. And even if you do disagree with him or feel that the things he said are not the things that are helping in a situation like this, it makes sense maybe to have that audience with someone who currently holds the position he holds. Again, though, I'm not telling any family that's dealing with tragedy or dealing with any kind of struggle what to do or not to do. I'm more just telling the media that it's crazy to criticize so much of this trip before it even happens, to insinuate that it is going to cause more tension. And the president seems to feel that it's going to cause enthusiasm for his campaign, and he intends to go. Doesn't that, just as a question to you, to anyone listening right now, and I don't know, anyone that hears this via podcast or wherever else you get your stuff, the Chad Benson Show, by the way, podcasted every single day by our brilliant producer, Phil. But truthfully here, if he is to go, does that not shine a spotlight on an issue that exists? Doesn't the president, whoever it is, going to a community and speaking from that community, bring more attention to what's going on, and hopefully in a positive way, of course, but in general, in a way in which maybe that community then has more of a platform to talk about the issues going on? Isn't that why presidents travel to areas that are hit with all kinds of things, whether it's something like this where there's protesting and then rioting and then there's people that are getting injured and people that are getting killed? Isn't that one of the things, if not like a tragedy, a national tragedy, a disaster of some kind, the things that every other president in the history of our country has done? And the sole intention is to shine a spotlight, for lack of a better term, on the area and on the issue that is important to every American. That's the way this normally works. And so the criticism of it just makes no sense to me. And also the lack of a willingness to sometimes, be around this man also does confuse me, especially in the world of the politicians and the people who can't stand the guy, and maybe the news media that can't stand the guy even while interviewing him, because, truthfully, that's where you get things done. You get things done by having conversations, by disagreeing or agreeing and maybe finding solutions. All right, let's totally pivot. Let's pivot gears in a very valuable way to me, because The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is yet another show that's been announced by HBO Max to be coming back for a reunion special. Friends is doing it, Now the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is doing it. Will Smith is on board to be a part of this, and I am excited because, well, I'm a millennial, and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is important to millennials for some reason. Tatiana Ali will be in the cast. Pretty much everybody that's involved in the show will be back. Alfonso Ribeiro, who is now more well-known for a lot of the things that he pops up on, like commercials and stuff, than when he played the character Carlton and danced on a TV. But this will be fun. I think this will be a very good, one-off reunion episode of a show. And I like that as opposed to a full reboot. I think a full reboot makes way less sense. This has nothing to do, by the way, it's mentioned here, with the gritty reboot of The Fresh Prince that's also in development. That is a real story. Not really sure when and how that will air, but that is another side project, I guess, going on that has none of these characters involved in it that's also going to exist in our world. But I like these. I don't want shows remade. I don't even necessarily, I think, want movies remade as much as they're getting made every single day, but a one-off reunion special, I can handle that. 30 Rock did it. Friends is going to do it, and now Fresh Prince. I think, what show would you like to see come back for one episode and one episode only? The right answer is Seinfeld, by the way. That's the only show that needs an episode to fix whatever the heck that was that show ended with. I don't know if those guys will ever do it, but we need to beg them to come back for a one-off. But what's yours? Tell us on our social media pages. If you could have one more episode of your favorite show, what would it be? And why? I would love to see some of those. Maybe I'll talk about some of those later on throughout the program. I also saw this in the news, and I liked it, and it's the news that I check every so often. A British man has posted an ad offering tours of what he's calling ghost ships. These are all the empty cruise liners that have been sitting in different areas, I guess, around the UK. These are the cruise ships that obviously right now are not having any customers. He's offering a 2.5-hour ghost ship tour, which he's charging, and I guess connecting with some of the local places that own these cruise lines to do that. That's an interesting move. I don't know if it's going to be terribly popular, but as the cruise lines are trying to come back and trying to figure out ways to generate new business, maybe this is one potential outcome. Maybe this is one road to go down to figure out if you can do the old ghost tour and maybe lean into Halloween. We don't have a lot of other options, so maybe we should be doing this here in the United States and have it all decorated and crazy for Halloween, and then send people through every so often. We can do social distancing. We can make that work. I don't know. I know that they're up for it because they need revenue like everybody else needs revenue. And then one last here. Here's a story that if, say, you got in a fight with somebody you care about and you want their heart to break and get a little teary-eyed, and then also think that you're a kind-hearted human, tell them this story because even though it's got a tragic beginning, it's got a very a nice ending. There is a German Shepherd that has gone viral on the news. Her name is Georgia because she recently gave birth to puppies and then sadly, very sadly, lost her puppies. This is not the part of the story you want to highlight when you're trying to win points with someone. What happened next is what's really touching. The rescue dog chose to adopt some kittens that had tragically lost their parent. So there's kittens without a mom. There's a dog without puppies. They come together, and now the kittens are behaving as if they're the dog's children. It is the cutest, most adorable thing. You can send someone a photo of this on the social medias, and they will love it. I guarantee it. They've never had a situation like this, according to the animal hospital that has seen this, the Sunrise Dog Rescue. But it just happened to be like a coincidence where you had these little kittens that are so young, and this dog that had just recently had puppies and tragically doesn't have them anymore. And look at that. Dogs and cats being friends. Dogs raising cats. See, 2020 can be fixed, and it can be fixed through adorable animal photos that will 100%, as I said, guaranteed win you some points if you share this story with someone who hasn't heard it yet and then show them some photo of the little kittens laying up against the dog. You've won the day, my friend. All right, this is the Chad Benson Show. I am Craig Collins filling in. I needed that palate cleanser. A break and then a lot more coming up.
Boys, give me a bowl of chili with plenty of peppers.
One Mexican heartburn. Why don't you mugs grow up?
The Chad Benson Show, where independent, a la carte thinkers have a seat at the table and a voice in the dialogue.
I'll have what she's having.
This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. It's just about enough months for me to wonder what's exactly happening with Tiger King. What's Joe Exotic been up to? What is next in his life? The guy still sitting behind bars is trying a new venture, maybe to capitalize on the popularity of his Netflix show, Tiger King, that is now probably forgotten for almost everybody that loved it. Just a few months ago, he tweeted, I don't know how, or the street team that designed this product tweeted for him that they are going to be releasing Tiger King underwear. The underwear will feature a very unique thing outside of just being leopard print, which was obvious. It'll actually have his face on it. They will print Joe Exotic's face on every piece of underwear created. They expect this, I guess, to be a somewhat popular item. I don't know exactly why. This is out of their Revenge line, by the way. The imagery is part of the 57-year-old's Revenge line of clothing that I guess I did not know existed, and I'm not sure how popular it is. The underwear themselves will cost $24 if you go the boxer variety. For a dude, if you go the female variety, it's $21. And as I said, every single piece of clothing not only has the tiger print, it also has the face of Joe Exotic on it. This is, again, a weird world in which we live. But it's nice to know that he's trying to capitalize on the popularity that he, I think, still probably has. And he's doing it from behind bars, and he's connecting with some people. Also in the news, a woman was in a zoo and decided that she doesn't care about anything anymore. Why not? This photo has gone viral. She took a photo trying to pet a tiger, which you see this all the time. And actually, I worked with a guy in radio for a while that had a catchphrase, and that catchphrase was wild animals go wild, and it happens all the time. In this case, I guess she was okay, but a lot of people freaked out because it's utterly, utterly dangerous. But it seemed important to talk about right after talking about Tiger King, because the animals that she was photoed with, one of them was a tiger, and I guess she was trying to touch interesting areas on the tiger just because she thought it was funny. The woman who I guess is from Bangkok is in a part of Thailand when she does this, and yeah, this is just the kind of thing that I guess she does often, according to those who've now seen it. It is crazy. It is crazy to see a person, any human being, in the cage of an animal, just taking selfies and feeling like they're making a good decision, and this is very much not a good decision. The New York Post covered this story for me, and I very much am grateful and thank you for that, because now you've gotten it here, and I got to talk about, I just don't know why. I don't know why that this happens, and it happens way more often than it should. And if you're ever with anyone who wants to do something like this, discourage them as strongly as you've ever discouraged anyone in the history of the world. That's just me. Beg them not to get in the tiger cage to take a real cool selfie, man. Another thing that's been in the news, and it's been in the news for a little while now, is Uber. They have been requiring passengers to wear masks for any of the drives that they're taking, any of the Uber, Lyft, or whatever it is that you're getting a pickup for, any of the trips, that's the word I'm looking for, that you're taking. And some people have resisted wearing a mask. Now Uber is banning any individual that has been noted by a driver as not a mask wearer unless they're willing to take a selfie of themselves wearing a mask at the time that they're supposed to be picked up. This is a brand new policy. Riders who violate the mask covering may soon see the service completely removed for them. They may be banned, or at least no drivers will be sent information about their pickup until they've done the selfie portion. And I don't know if that actually helps, though. Like, does that actually prove then that they keep it on throughout the ride, or is there a way in which maybe this could still wind up going rogue? But Uber is in the news, one, for trying to protect its drivers through this policy, and two, for being as aggressive about it as this, to require that all paid customers are putting those selfies out there for the world, or at least Uber to see, to make sure that it's okay for them to be picked up. I don't know what the right answer in any of this is. I know that a lot of people might be weary of taking an Uber at all right now, so there might be an impact to the company if you start adding additional layers that might push some people away, but it's probably a good thing. I think mask wearing is definitely a good thing, so I don't know if this is all that harmful, but it is being talked about quite a bit that Uber is going to require those passengers to prove that they have a mask on. I think you just got to shoot video then. I don't think you do the selfie. I think you got to keep the video on the entire time to make sure that nothing else has changed. One last story here, silly news, weird news. New Zealand, there's a buyer who set a record for the most expensive houseplant. I talked recently about someone who bought the most expensive sheep, I think, at like $500,000, which is crazy. Houseplants don't go for that much, so that's the good news. They saved a lot of their savings. Only $5,300. A New Zealand buyer bought a house plant for $5,291, which has set a record on the auction site it was being auctioned on. There's not a lot of explanation as to why the guy wanted this plant this bad. But, you know, I've seen some stories saying that even houseplants, if you don't have pets, might lift your mood if you're stuck at home. And maybe he just really connected when he saw it on TradeMe.com. And he said, you know what, I need this guy. And a bidding war. If you're the owner of the plant and you see a bidding war take place for your office item and it's getting that high, how do you feel? That has to be the best few hours or minutes, however long this takes, you've ever experienced to see your plant going for a record amount of money. And that is a very surprise item. I would not have bet on that going in, that someone would have bought a plant for $5,300 and set a record on a site. But there you go. All right, this is Craig Collins filling in. More Chad Benson Show in a bit.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thought, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in for today. Thrilled to be with you. I saw that Hawaii is now mandating a safe travel screening process that involves 2 weeks of quarantine for anyone that enters the state, and violators could face up to $5,000 in fines. That's a pretty good way to ruin a trip to Hawaii. The Aloha State today said that they will roll out their digital safe travels application that collects health and travel information during COVID-19, the pandemic, required by all travelers. The multi-step screening will involve temperature checks for travelers upon arrival and secondary screenings for individuals with symptoms or temperatures of 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit or above. I am pleased to launch this digital app, which will allow our travelers to provide their required health and travel information before they arrive at the airport, said the governor of Hawaii. It will also help us keep in contact with those who are required to be in quarantine. This is an important step in preparing to reopen our economy. So it spies on you a little bit. But hey, it's Hawaii. Out of all the places I'd download an app that's likely to track everything that I'm doing, Hawaii is probably at the top of the list for places I'd like to visit and be like, fine, you can spy on me for a few weeks and then hopefully I can delete the app successfully. But I get it if a lot of people don't want to do this. The quarantine portion maybe not as big of a deal as the app you have to put on your phone that then, you know, among other things, can tell where you are at all times. That's totally fine. I do have a story about China and parts of the country that still have outbreaks of COVID-19 and what happens in those places. Because it's weird. There was a while where I think some people, whether it was news people or politicians, kind of forgot that China's a country that's got some issues. There's some challenges that exist there, maybe some freedoms that we're used to here in our country that don't exactly play out the exact same way there. This story from the New York Post saying that in certain places in China where there were heightened coronavirus outbreaks, you were forced to take medication and you were forced into lockdown. And again, remember that at times, this is a country that once the president started to attack, people defended to the extent of saying a lot of things that seem untrue when I read you a story about how in areas where there are large outbreaks, not only are you forced into quarantine, sometimes aggressively, but you're also forced to take medication. Those are things, no matter how bad our pandemic gets here, that I would, and I assume you as Americans would hope never to see in our very own country. All right, let's pivot. Let's shift gears because I have a Starbucks story. And I wonder whenever I talk about anything in this world, and this is an off-the-menu recipe that apparently is created by TotallyTheBomb.com, which is not a website I was familiar with till right now, but I'm a fan of TotallyTheBomb.com. It is a take on one of their items that I guess is supposed to taste like funnel cake when you're finally done. There's not going to be a lot of carnivals, not a lot of places for us to go like normally and experience those big kind of outings in large groups. And the funnel cake is one of the nicest, maybe most enjoyable things you can have over the summer when you go to one of those. You can make it yourself via a drink at the Starbucks, but anyone who works there is going to hate you. Any human being that has to make this drink for you, because I have the steps in front of me of how you turn a a regular product at a coffee shop into a funnel cake version of a product that they don't exactly sell. You start off, and these are the tips from totallythebomb.com. Again, one of my new favorite websites. You start off by asking for a cafe vanilla frappuccino blended beverage. Next, you have to ask the barista to make the cafe vanilla frappuccino blended beverage with a single pump of their signature toffee nut syrup. This is awesome. Who did this? What guy or lady experienced enough different drinks over time to makeshift this and then share it on the internets? I don't know, but I'm telling you all about it. It does not specify, by the way, if the toffee nut syrup, the signature product at a Starbucks, is changed from one pump to multiple pumps if you're getting a larger size drink. And I think that some of the people who covered this story are a little sad about that. But I guess, go with what you like. Before the Frappuccino is made, specifically mention that you would like the Starbucks caramel sauce drizzled inside the cup and on top of the whipped cream. Totally the Bomb recommends asking for extra sauce to get a funnily cake taste. I can't believe this is a thing. To complete the Frappuccino, by the way, the website also says to top off the drink with their signature cinnamon dolce powder. This is the last step to get the full effect. Based on current nutrition facts available on Starbucks' website, ordering a venti-sized version of this custom drink would be over 500 calories that you're drinking. And so just a warning there. I love that there's steps. I love that there's a way in which to make this happen. This isn't even a secret menu item. It's just people going rogue. And I'm guaranteeing you right now that the person you order this from, and when you are this specific about steps like drizzle the inside of the cup with caramel sauce, they hate you. They hate everything about you. They don't want you to come back. Yes, that's a strong word. But yes, the person who just wanted to make you a freaking coffee drink and leave you and never talk to you again is now having to go through all this rigmarole in order to make it exactly the way you want, and probably not going to do it correctly. I also saw a story out of Alabama in which a woman was confused as to why her mailbox continued to get raided by what she thought were thieves taking her mail, which was confusing because sometimes it wasn't even valuable mail. It was just everything. So she set up a video in order to see and then shared on Facebook when she finally caught the perpetrator of this problem. It was a goat that was breaking into her mailbox and eating her mail, which also feels to me like a 2020 problem. I know this is radio and not television. I know you can't see me right now, and this is best seen. So I put it up on my Facebook page, facebook.com/The Craig Collins Show. You can probably find it all over the internet, too, and we'll try to get it on some other social media pages for Chad Benson. But it's just a goat sitting outside. And honestly, the thing about like when an animal does something to be a jerk to a human, I don't know if they're aware when they do it, but like they don't break eye contact. As she's taping the goat eating her mail, it's just looking back at her, like doing it slowly, almost taunting. Like, yeah, I'm doing this. This is the year we're living in right now. You take it, lady. It's my food, and you're not getting any of these things. I found it very amusing, but you be the judge. Go to my Facebook page or go several other places on the internet and figure that out. I think, that, again, is a really good case of what could possibly be going on that our mail's getting taken. Oh, that's right. A random goat is consuming it in Alabama. Cops are searching for 2 alligators stolen from a pet store in Pennsylvania. I have questions. The first question is, why would you steal alligators? That is usually, the way I wouldn't go with that. The Pierce's Pet Place in Indiana County, PA, on August 8th, reported that they lost 2 6-foot female alligators and a 4-foot male alligator, all stolen from the establishment. The owner of the shop told the Pittsburgh Post that the enclosure holding the alligators had a crew of 12 people, had 12 screws. That's not a crew. 12 screws removed so that the feat could be done without someone going into the building. He said it was a real bummer, and I want them back. Yeah, that makes sense. If they were going to be a big place where people knew how to care for them, maybe he'd be happy with the fact that they're gone. But the fear is that it's just some idiot who stole alligators because they thought it was funny, which unfortunately I think is probably the most likely scenario to me too. Now in other news, and again, I actually have a new segment I want to do sometimes where it's this could have waited till 2021. And it's any news story out there that has a negative slant that's just not really helping us right now. And really, we could have waited a year on finding out about it. This story comes from dailystar.co.uk. So I don't know if they're reputable or not, but some scientists are saying that the Y chromosome is far less likely than ever to develop in people. meaning that men are slowly dying out. That is the position taken here. A person's sex is determined by their 2 chromosomes. If you didn't know that, the X and the Y. Of course, the X has approximately 1,000 genes. Of course it does. Thank you, article, for telling me that, but I knew that. And Y has just 45, and research suggests that the Y chromosome is gradually shrinking even further, meaning it will be less dominant, meaning there's going to be less guys out there. That's not good. So this could have waited till 2021, in my opinion. Researchers, if they figure this out, if they notice that this kind of thing is happening, and if they don't, as there is none here, provide a solution to fix the problem, let's just pump the brakes on telling anybody about it in a year where we can't take any more bad news, and instead tell me things like a goat is stealing somebody's mail, and there's a Starbucks drink I can make that's going to really make a barista mad, and that makes me a little bit happier in this day and age, and I don't have to worry about the fact that someday there's not going to be any guys anymore. I don't know how we fix that. I don't even know if this is a true story. Honestly, I need some help. Go to our Facebook page and tell me if any of this makes any sense at all. I would love it if someone actually had some expertise in this area. Facebook.com/The Chad Benson Show, or my own, or any of our other social media channels, because this is not the most reputable of sites, even though the University of California in Berkeley is quoted in here, and a couple other more reputable places for being concerned about this. Males completely dying out is a story I didn't need as a dude in 2020, and I'm just being honest about that. All right, it is the Chad Benson Show, I promise you. I am Craig Collins filling in. Back in a bit.
Warning, no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I have a medium tolerance for news, and so I do a lot of things other than news throughout the show. But we have the biggest story of the day, probably for today, will be the president's visit to Kenosha, Wisconsin. One that I am saying we should wait and see as to how and what is said before reacting to it. So anyone that's telling you anywhere that it's inappropriate for the guy to go because all he's going to do is incite violence, you got to wait and hear from the guy. You got to wait and actually see what he says and how he handles himself and what the intention is, because any president in the history of our country who traveled to a specific area, whether it be because of a natural disaster or a social issue like this, a civil issue like this, any kind of issue, is trying to bring attention to those conversations more so than anything else, certainly with an opinion. The president will have an idea of how to fix the problems that he will address while in a place that is seeing issues they don't want to keep seeing. But the entire goal of the travel itself is simply to shine a spotlight, I should say, on the area and on the conversation that's going on in those places. And so to criticize that just makes no sense to me. Cobra Kai is the #1 TV show on Netflix right now. And you might ask me, what's Cobra Kai? Well, it's apparently a sequel to the Karate Kid movie of the 1980s, and it stars all the regular people, although it focuses more on the bad guy than the good guy. There's not as much Daniel-san in it, I guess, but he's part of the show. And it had rave reviews when it was on YouTube a couple years ago, but it was behind a paywall. It was on their premium service, which actually at the time was called YouTube Red, I believe. Now it's just called YouTube Premium or YouTube Plus, something, I don't know. But anyway, the show was there. It actually won some Emmy Awards, nominated for some great acting awards. Very much something that critics liked. Nobody really saw it. People did not watch the show because you didn't want to pay another subscription and you didn't want to pay YouTube specifically for that. So now that it's on Netflix, it has dominated apparently and risen to #1. And it has, again, rave reviews. I wonder if we rediscuss this movie or maybe we can give it new awards because now people know what it is. And I just love the fact that some of these things that I say I don't want remade then get remade and apparently are pretty good. And they're going to suck me in. I'm going to wind up watching this show. I don't want to, but I'm going to have to because, come on, it was the Karate Kid. How do you resist that kind of thing? Florida is encouraging people to travel back to their state via commercial flights as cases decrease in the area. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said, while arguing that it is safe right now to visit the state and it is safe to find a way to partake in what is the valuable amount of tourism that needs to happen in any of these kind of communities for those incomes, for those economies to not be impacted any harder than they've already been. According to the Associated Press, the Sunshine State saw peak averages of almost 12,000 cases per day in mid-July, and it has started to go the other direction. This should be encouraging news, certainly for places like Walt Disney World, places that would like to see tourism come back. But I'm not convinced until it happens that a whole lot of people are going to be doing a bunch of traveling, since right now I guess we're going to see a lot of Labor Day travel, but it'll be almost entirely via road trips. Although the airlines are changing the ways in which they charge, multiple airlines getting behind United in dropping those changes in fees and those ways in which maybe you adjust a flight from one day to another day. Typically a very expensive maneuver at the airport with the airline will now be relatively cheap or almost free at a lot of places. So maybe that does encourage more travel. Speaking of airlines, though, there were 2 men that were arrested on a Ryanair flight. This was on Sunday night as a potential security threat after there was a confusion about a suspicious item that might have been dropped in a toilet in the airport. This is all true. The guys are 34 and 48, respectively. They are from Italy. They were trying to board a flight from Vienna to London when they were arrested. It turns out, though, the suspicious item that everyone was very worried about was a cell phone that someone lost in a toilet. And I think that, as I've always said, there is definitely a place. We're all attached to the cell phone, right? Like it's part of your body almost. There is a place it can go where I don't want it back, and that is the toilet, and certainly a public one. So the fact that this happened, one, is, I guess, just a guy having to live a life in which he lost something that he wishes he didn't lose. And 2, just go ahead and keep that. I'll get a new one when I get home. I don't need that right now. But all the commotion, all the worry came from the fact that an electronic device had been left in a bathroom, and it turns out that the guy's just embarrassed because he lost his cell phone. In other news, and something that's gone viral, the video of it at least, a little girl, a 3-year-old girl, was at a kite festival. This is in Taiwan, when she somehow got tangled in string with the kite and was lifted into the air almost 100 feet for several seconds. This was very scary. A lot of people in the video scared and screaming and trying to figure out a way to get the girl down. 3 years old, flying 100 feet in the air. Eventually, she gets down safely and everybody's fine. And my only reaction to this story, other than the fact that thank God everybody's okay, because you're definitely scared, is depending on the kid. And in this case, I think this kid was probably afraid and thrilled to be on the ground. But I think of my nephew or even myself when I was younger, some of us would want to go again. There's some kids out there in the world that would be like, all right, man, that was awesome. Let's run it back. Let's do the whole thing over again. See if you can get me 150, 200 feet in the air. And I'm glad she's not one of those people, because that's a much harder thing. Once you've experienced that, once you've been that high up in the air and come down safely, you're going to start to think that maybe this is the kind of thing you can execute on a daily basis. And as I said, if it were me, I think I would have gotten in more trouble, because this would be the kind of thing I'd do very often. It is an interesting video to watch, by the way. We'll put it up on some social media pages, or I'll put it up on the Craig Collins Show page, just because it's surreal. It all happens in seconds. Like a big gust of wind comes and you wind up getting tangled up in the strings, and then boom, there's a kid 100 feet in the air. If you're a parent to that child, like, you have no idea what happened. The amount of panic that would go through your body would be surreal, to just be flying kites at a festival, and then all of a sudden, oh, my kid is 100 feet above us, just floating up there. I've done a bad job parenting, to say the very least. But again, and thankfully the reason I'm joking about this, everybody wound up okay. And I imagine at some point that kid's going to have really awesome memories to share with people of being the kid in the video whenever anybody looks it up, because that's going to follow you. She's going to have a job interview much later in her life, and someone's going to Google the fact that she was Kite Girl at one point and see that she floated very high. And she's very lucky. To be honest, maybe things will work out for her. One last quick story. A Tesla driver put his car on autopilot. This happened in a part of North Carolina. And apparently, as is a lot of people do when they put cars on autopilot, or at least for the fancy ones, they think you can take your eyes off the road. He started watching a movie while sitting in the front seat and collided with a cop car. Everybody's okay. Thankfully, no one was injured. The troopers were actually outside of the vehicle, but they did get knocked over by the force in which the Tesla crashed into their patrol car and moved everybody. That is just surreal. That is surreal, the amount of mistakes that are made here. And actually, to quote my producer, Phil, stupid should hurt. And I definitely assume it did in this case, although everybody, as I said, is fine. That is, your Tesla's ruined. And certainly you probably have learned the lesson not to watch a movie while behind the wheel of a vehicle. Chad Benson Show. I'm going to calm down for a bit. Craig Collins filling in.
is The Chad Benson Show.